Hey guys, it's Callie and welcome back to my channel. And today we're talking about the best shows of 2022. Another year has come and gone, and with it, we've gotten a whole bunch of new shows. So I wanted to just go through and talk about some of my favorite and standout shows from 2022. If you're new to my channel, I make video essays and recaps about various TV shows and animated media, but I also enjoy discussing and reviewing shows that I've watched recently and just generally enjoy. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, be sure to check out the other videos on my channel and subscribe to see more. Without further ado, let's get into it because there is a lot to talk about, and let's start off by discussing my best animated show this year, being Puppy Cat. So I wanted to start off this video by talking about Being Puppy Cat because it was the topic of the last video I posted, and in the comments people were pretty harsh in their reviews of the new episodes, but I actually really enjoyed the show. I am a sucker for a good cartoon. I grew up loving cartoons, I still love cartoons, I just love the fun silliness that only a cartoon can convey. And while Being Puppy Cat is a great animated series, I think at its core it's just a really good cartoon. It's a show that you can put on and feel nice and cozy for an episode or two, or it's a show that you can watch for an entire day because you just had a really tiring week and just want to escape the world for a little bit. I guess what I'm trying to say is I think a lot of people had built up these expectations after waiting years for these episodes, and those expectations had reached such unattainable heights that no version of the show could live up to it. And I will admit the first 3 episodes are a tad clunky in their pacing, and you can tell that the studio did have an issue finishing the animation on time as some scenes are in a widely different style than the other. And not to excuse time management issues, but seeing as how Netflix hasn't made the best decisions in regards to how they manage their animation studios, I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't some weird timeline or executive drama behind the scenes. And personally, I would rather have a show with a few scenes in chibi style than have no show at all. And to the show's credit, I think they did a good job summarizing like 9 years of lore in such a short time period, while also expanding upon the world they built and retelling the story the way that they always wanted to. Although I will say the fact that they pulled a fruits basket and turned Deckard's affection for Bee into this maternal thing was semi-hilarious, but whatever, I wasn't the biggest Bee and Deckard shipper from the get-go. And I do want to say that on my second watch of the series, I did notice that the first few episodes do fit the style of the newer ones, and they do make a lot of sense plot-wise and fill in a lot of the holes left by writers years ago. But I think because Being Puppy Cat was such a nostalgic show for people in such a pivotal time of their life, they were expecting the exact same version of the show just years later. But in reality, nothing new can truly recreate the feelings you had when you first watched the show because years have passed and you're a different person now with different experiences and perceptions of the world. And I think people were kind of looking for the show to recreate something that is just impossible to recreate. So instead of criticizing the show for what you had hoped it'd be, I encourage you to appreciate it for what it is, because while your 5-year expectations of the show might have differed from reality, Being Puppy Cat is still a really great show. They strike the perfect balance of fun, episodic storylines and overarching main plot, and you can tell just how much love and care went into the show at every level of production, and their attention to detail is evident throughout the series. One of Being Puppy Cat's biggest strength is world building, and these new episodes only further prove that. From the little bows on the trees to the fleshed out living spaces of the main characters, you get a really good sense of what life is like on this little island and just who these characters are. And they're all great characters, by the way. Like, the show really knows how to write good, solid characters and really build up their personalities. Starting the series, I was a little bit concerned because they had introduced so many characters at once, and I was a little bit unsure of how it would play out. But they did an amazing job at portraying every character's little quirks and habits, and surely into the series, I already felt very familiar with every character, even all 7 of the wizard siblings. And don't get me started on Toast, I could talk about her all day. Honestly, these new episodes felt like they were made and produced for Netflix rather than for a streaming service years ago, because the jump in production quality from a handful of 10-minute web episodes to 13 25-minute episodes was insane, because again, the show is just that good. The sound and color design for the show is incredible and does an amazing job at setting the tone and mood that the writers are going for. For example, the entire show has this sort of lo-fi, dreamy pop music throughout it, But when the show's villains are on screen, the music changes to this kind of funky, futuristic siren style that, when first heard, immediately throws you off and really makes you realize the contrast between the main characters and the outer space villains. The voice acting is also done incredibly well, and I love the fact that so much effort was put into this aspect, because having such a diverse and unique cast of voices really helps personalize these characters and kind of sell them to the audience. However, even though I greatly enjoyed the show, that's not to say the show is entirely without fault. At times it felt like they were planting flags and hinting to these bigger plot points that just never played out, and at times I found myself wishing that they had just fully committed to these larger plot teasers rather than just have everything wrap up nicely in one episode. Their use of curse words is also a tad clunky at times, as one of the reoccurring jokes throughout the series is how characters handle cursing, because one of the main characters, Cardamom, is a little child, and you don't want to curse around little kids. And this is actually another stark contrast between the main cast and the villains, because the villains will curse without hesitation, and that's actually the audience's first interaction with them, which I think is another really nice detail. But the way that the main cast self-center and do occasionally curse at times can feel a little bit cringy or weirdly inconsistent, and whenever they made these jokes, it just kind of took me out of the show because it just felt a little bit out of place. But even with those gripes, I love the show, and I can honestly say it was one of the most comforting things I've watched all year, and I will continue to come back to this series for years to come. I really hope there's a future for this show, because every time I watch it, I'm reminded of just how much I love it and what a great piece of art it is. You can tell that everyone involved in this show deeply cares for it, and the fact that it is such a visible labor of love makes it something really special. So I encourage you, if you haven't watched Being Puppy Cat yet, give the show a chance, especially since Netflix has been doing very little promotion for it and is using this god-awful preview pic for it on the Netflix desktop. Like what even is this? All I'll say is that it's very rare that we get a show with so much creativity and passion behind it. And in a world full of mediocre reboots and cash-hungry production studios, it's more important now than ever to support original shows that are just really, really good. Now for the best anime of 2022, I could talk about the obvious heavy hitters, Spy X Family, Chainsaw Man, and Mob Psycho, which I have not watched yet, but I have heard the ending is very, very good. But my best anime of the year is one I haven't seen on a lot of people's radar, which is Netflix's Romantic Killer. The series is about a high school girl with no interest in romance, whose life is turned upside down when a mysterious wizard creature turns her life into a dating sim, much to the annoyance of our anti-heroine. And I love dating sims, I love romance anime, so this show was right up my alley. Watching the show, you can tell that the writers are big fans of the romance genre because there's just a lot of fun Easter eggs and references to common shoujo trash, such as the easy best friend route, and this scene which is basically just a reenactment of Boys Over Flowers. And even though they lean heavily into these cheesy tropes for the sake of comedy, the show doesn't feel like it's trying too hard or overdoing it, and I found myself legitimately laughing during most, if not all, episodes because of just how absurd it all was. And in between all of the chaotic storylines, there is a good sprinkling of romance and wholesomeness, and the show is just a really good, true romantic comedy. My only gripe about the show is that the subtitles can be so hard to read and at times are a little bit delayed. And this isn't so much the show's fault as it is Netflix's, because this is a reoccurring gripe I've had with the streaming service. Because despite Netflix having some really cool shows, I don't usually watch anime on Netflix because I just get a headache trying to read this small white text on this usually bright background. And while it's not as bad on my laptop, I really like watching anime on the big TV. But again, that's not the show's fault, but rather the streaming platform that it's on. So getting back on track, the series is generally one of the most fun things I've watched all year, and if you want a very nice, lighthearted romance, or you're a fan of dating sims and romance series in general, I highly, highly recommend checking it out. Now, I first heard about this series on Twitter as everyone was talking about how good it was and how it had gay vampires in it, which, say less. I mean, earlier this year, I watched a show about gay pirates and loved it, so why wouldn't I enjoy this one as well? But going into the show, I don't think I anticipated just how good it would be. Interview with a Vampire is pure art and modern media at its finest. It's incredibly fitting that every episode opens with the sound of an orchestra warming up, because watching the show is like watching a performance. Every line, every prop, every shot is very intentional and serves a purpose, and watching the show, it feels like reading a book, if that makes sense. How well they set the tone, combined with their great attention to detail, allows you to easily understand the intricate story and complex emotions that the writers are trying to convey. I'm personally curious how closely this story follows the original novel, because I'm not familiar with Anne Rice's work and I haven't watched the 1994 film adaptation, because while I did have a huge vampire phase growing up, I don't know, vampire Tom Cruise just didn't really do it for me as a kid. But in this rendition, the writers and actors do such an amazing job portraying the longing, despair, elation, anger, and other strong emotions that come from a highly passionate but equally volatile relationship, and you can't help but feel deeply for these characters. You empathize with Louis' internal emotions as he both fully embraces his sexuality and struggles with his newfound vampirism, and you find yourself constantly torn between Lestat's undeniable charm and romanticism and his deeply cruel and abusive nature. The pacing of the show is also incredible because I am a notorious binge watcher. I enjoy watching a series in 1 or 2 sittings just to see how each episode leads into the next and to try and fully understand the overarching story they're trying to tell. But with the show, I found myself wanting to pause after each episode and kind of just reflect on what I had just watched. Going back to how the series feels like reading a novel, every episode feels like a completed chapter with a strong opening and a satisfying ending to the arc told within that one episode. And I think this is such a rarity when it comes to episodic series, because usually episodes are made to make you want to watch the next one immediately and, right away see where that cliffhanger picks back up. But this is one of the first shows where I actually enjoyed waiting in between episodes, because while I did want to know what happened next, I also felt very satisfied from watching just one episode. And I personally felt like binging this show in a single earring would take away from the story as a whole, because I really wanted time to sit and process kind of all the feelings and emotions from what I just watched. I'm not sure if this makes sense, and I'm kind of just rambling right now, so I'll move on from this point. But Interview with a Vampire was legitimately one of my favorite things I've watched all year, and it is one of the most well-produced pieces of media I've seen in a good long while. From the music scoring to the costuming, every aspect of the show is executed extremely well. The writing is fantastic, and the finale is the perfect accumulation of all of the reoccurring emotions the audience has been feeling and anticipating in all the episodes leading up to it. So yeah, if you're a freaky deaky little vampire like me growing up, or enjoy well-produced media, or you just want to see some gay vampires, I highly recommend checking this out. And even though season 2 is already greenlit, I want to support this series as much as possible because it's incredibly made, and watching something like this makes me excited about the potential in episodic series, and I really hope that all the positive reception around this show will lead to others like it being produced in the future. So yeah, those are all the best shows I watched all year. If you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe if you aren't already, and let me know what you guys think. What were some of the best shows you watched all year? Were they some of the shows mentioned in this video, or were they something entirely different? One honorable mention I watched this year was Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. It's a beautiful stop animation movie, and it's produced alongside the Jim Henson Company, which made both The Muppets and one of my favorite series of all time, The Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, so of course I love the styling of it. It's also a really deeply moving story that had me crying at the end, but my personal favorite part of the movie is that it highlights just how actually terrifying it would be if a wooden puppet came to life.
My name is Pinocchio. I'm your son.
But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you guys for another year on the channel. I've had so much fun creating content with you guys, and it's kind of crazy just how big some of the videos I've made for this channel have got. And I do want to say, while I am very grateful that so many people have enjoyed some of the content I've made, I have found myself struggling to make more videos because I feel like every video needs to be better than the rest, and I need to create something that will be just as good or even better than those bigger videos. And perfectionism is something I've always struggled with, and it can sometimes be hard for me to start something if I don't believe that I'll be amazing at it on the first try. But that's not how life and that's not how hobbies work. So going into 2023, I am really going to try and let go of those weird standards that I have for myself and just try to create. because I really do enjoy making YouTube videos. I love writing, I love filming, I love editing, and I just have so many fun ideas that I really want to bring to life. So I'm just really excited for what 2023 will bring. Just a heads up, I am going to take January off from all content creation stuff, but I am excited for all the new videos to come, and I really hope you guys are as well. But yeah, again, thank you all for watching my videos and supporting my channel. It really does mean a lot to me. I hope you all have a lovely end of the year, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!
I'll be back later for my stuff. And also, probably, some of your stuff.